Hello student, this is Dr. Faizan Mirza. I am discussing with you some working terminologies regarding biodiversity classification and conservation. First of all, biological classification. What is biological classification? It's basically just the organization of living and extinct organisms into systematic groups on the basis of similarities and differing features between these species. What's taxonomy? Taxonomy is the study and practice of naming and classifying species and groups of species within the hierarchical scheme which basically deal with biological classification. What's a hierarchical classification? A hierarchical classification is an arrangement of organisms into groups of different ranks. For example, species is the lowest rank. Similar species are all grouped together in the next rank, which is called genus. Domain is the highest of all the ranks in this hierarchy. What's taxon? Taxon is a group of a specific rank. For example, species is a certain taxon, genus is a separate taxon as well. Kingdom refers to a taxonomic rank which is below domain, and we classify eukaryotes in different kingdoms, in 4 different kingdoms: Plantae, Fungi, Protoctista, and Animalia. The concept of species that we have discussed so far, as the definition of species that we have covered, is actually a group of organisms with similar morphological, physiological, and biochemical features which can interbreed to produce fertile offsprings and are reproductively isolated from other species. We have discussed this definition previously as well. This is the biological species concept. But apart from that, there are 2 more concepts in which we can define species, and that includes morphological species and ecological species. Morphological species are a group of organisms that share many physical features that distinguish them from other species. Similarly, ecological species is yet another concept in which a population of individuals of the same species which are living in the same area at the same time are actually considered as same ecological species. Morphological species, for example, humans, chimpanzees, apes, gorillas, monkeys, they all are having similar morphological features, so they can be considered as morphological species. Ecological species, different organisms occupying the same ecological niche. For example, those which are living together in a river, and for example, fish. For example, a fish and a crocodile and alligator and the plant and the plants and all the herbivores there and the insects there. They all actually are the ecological species because they all are using the same resources. So that's basically the ecological species concept. Although these concepts are not very useful, they are useful in the sort that they are simple to understand and simple to classify. But although there are a lot of limitations of morphological species and ecological species, that's why we have to classify the organisms on a biological basis. A population is all the organisms of the same species present in the same place at the same time, and they can all interbreed with one another. What's a species richness? It's the number of species in a community. It basically is the species richness. Whereas species diversity, it's actually the number of different species types and all their distinct phenotypic forms with their relative abundance actually is a species diversity. So there's a difference between species diversity and species richness. Pearson's linear correlation, it's a statistical test which is used to determine if there is a linear correlation between 2 variables that are normally distributed. We use a scatter plot and we make judgment by eye. We know that the data is normally distributed, and we calculate the value of Pearson linear correlation. What is Spearman's rank correlation? Spearman's rank correlation is a statistical test which is used to determine if there is a correlation between the 2 variables when one or both of them are not normally distributed. Here we plot a scatter plot, and by the scatter plot we cannot make judgment by eye that whether this correlation is present or not. Transect is a line marked by a measure tape along which samples are then taken, either by noting down the species at equal distances, which we do in line transect, or by placing a quadrate at regular intervals, which we actually do in belt transect. Alien species. The concept of alien species is a species that has moved to a new ecosystem where it was previously unknown. Invasive species can be an alien species. So an alien species or a phenotypic form of existing species that does not have a natural predator anymore or is better adapted for survival than others in that ecosystem or habitat becomes an invasive species. The invasive species damages the ecosystem and the environment and the community as well. It's a major cause of leading others less fit for survival to being endangered or being extinct. Why? Because it overproduces and it exploits natural reserves at an enormous rate, and the natural reserves are unable to replenish at the same rate. I've already covered these definitions with you, so that's pretty much from my side. Thank you so much.